All right, this is Jeff Walton with the Institute on Religion and Democracy in Washington, D.C. I'm joined today by the Reverend Matt Kennedy from Good Shepherd Church in Binghamton, New York. Matt is a regular voice on the StandFirm blog and has been a ACNA provocateur for some time now. So I wanted to reach out to him. Thanks so much for making time, Matt.
Great to be here. Thank you.
One of the things that you had shared earlier this week over Facebook was a theory that you've been developing. And just to read from your post that really caught my attention, you noted a good number of new generation of Anglican clergy are recovering from very rigid fundamentalist pasts where their heads were packed with lots of scripture, but their hearts were left cold. Where their pastors or parents wedded the Republican Party to the Christian faith without much distinction between the two. The ACNA is perceived as a place where they might convalesce. These clergy often nurse a reactionary distaste for the sexuality debate, associating with the culture wars of their fundamentalist past, and make a point to publicly identify as often as possible with the political left as a kind of declaration of independence from the civic religion of their past, not recognizing the irony that they have simply exchanged a civic religion of the right for a civic religion of the left. Wow, that's quite something. This really resonated with me because I've noted in my own context in ACNA that I meet a lot of people who are in the ACNA because they're transiting from often an evangelical background into a different future. But the ACNA is a waypoint, not necessarily the end point. What have you observed in regards to that, Matt?
Same thing. It really struck me these last few months as I've been engaging with some 30-something Anglican clergy members who didn't go through the departure from the Episcopal Church, didn't go through the turmoil that took place then and the debate over sexuality that's ongoing now in the wider evangelical world. They didn't go through any of that, and so they come into the ACNA fresh out of some experiences they've had in evangelicalism or further to the right, I guess, fundamentalism, and they see the ACNA as, well, it's very different than I perceive it. I perceive it as this place where Orthodoxy is going to be defended and upheld and the gospel proclaimed. I think in some ways these people see it as a place where the rigid model of Christianity they were given growing up is now much more broadened. I think they look, well, I mean, I'm sure that if you know anyone who was raised in a fundamentalist background, with liturgy is, you know, that's Catholics and liberals do liturgy. Wearing of the collar, that's we're Christians, we don't do that. We're Anglicans and Episcopalians, we're always set into the category of wacko leftist liberals if you're a fundamentalist. So just becoming a person in the ACNA is already kind of an act of independence, of breaking free from the rigidity of the past. And so for some of these guys, when they hear ACNA members taking very hard, firm stances on things like human sexuality, it just raises all these specters from the past of the culture wars, like I mentioned in the post. And this one woman in particular, who's a clergy woman in the ACNA, when I posted something about human sexuality and the importance of upholding orthodoxy in that regard, and the theological question didn't even seem to register to her. To her, I was being political. I was talking about politics. I was engaging, to use the language, in culture war, when we need to not do that. We need to engage those who differ from us, and, you know, try to make friends with those who are on the other side of the sexuality debate. So I thought that was very odd, and I tried to think, okay, where is this coming from? Why are these people in the ACNA of all places? Mm-hmm. And that's why I put that post as a result of that kind of thinking it through.
Mhm. It does seem like many people in the ACNA do come from different backgrounds. We've long since moved past the point where we were primarily vacuuming up disaffected Episcopalians. That time ended years ago.
Right.
Primarily the people who I meet who are coming into ACNA now are either from an evangelical context or also, sometimes you get the stereotypical married couple who one is Roman Catholic and the other is Baptist, and they're looking to split the difference. So that, of course, is nothing new. But it does seem like there is a challenge here where, on one hand, those of us that were amidst the Episcopal Church split need to hold on to those lessons and transmit them to others. But at the other time, we've also been somewhat scarred by certain denominational battles, and our hopes and dreams for ACNA are that the time is going to be better spent on the proclamation of the gospel rather than having to retread things that have already been going through. How do we navigate that?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. I suppose I whenever I hear people, and I use this language too, talk about the Anglican Wars of the past, right? Mm-hmm. I agree that there was a significant battle that took place within the Episcopal Church and in the wider Anglican communion. That battle's still going on. But I kind of think that was just a foretaste of what the wider Christian world is now experiencing, both within evangelicalism and within Roman Catholicism and even Orthodoxy. You see some voices beginning to push for a wider, a broader understanding of human sexuality. So I tend to think that I wouldn't want to see the ACNA as a place where we no longer fight that battle because it's over. I would see the ACNA as a place where we've been through that battle. We know what it's about. We've heard all the arguments, and we're ready to lend our services to the wider war that's breaking out within Christendom. And I think then the way we're perceived, I think, is by some of these new clergymen and women as these grizzled veterans who can't get over their hurt and pain from past battles, and they're just refighting the old war all over again. I think that's a mistaken view. I think yeah, we're veterans, but there's experience that we've gained that I think gives us insight into what's going on within evangelicalism that a lot of evangelicals can't see. I'll give you an example. I know one person who's got a fairly wide platform in the evangelical world, and this person was embarking on a project with a well-known Christian promoter of the LGBT movement, I guess side A, gay Christian, and this Orthodox Christian was saying was thinking it was great to be in this joint project with this person who has such a different view than she did about human sexuality, and she couldn't understand why anyone would be upset by that. And I suggested to her, well, this kind of partnership that you're developing, even though you're very clear about your disagreements with this person, this partnership that you're developing legitimizes that position as a position that can be held within the Christian faith, within the pale of Orthodoxy. You by participating in this conversation, you're communicating that the issue of sexuality is really adiaphora, a kind of issue that Christians can disagree about and not divide. And she said, oh, I didn't even think about that. That's hard-won knowledge. That's the kind of foundational lesson that we had to learn going through what we went through, that I think can be of great service to those on the outside. Where I think we got to be careful for, maybe this is maybe where you're coming from, is we got to be careful for not to be overcome by bitterness. Right? We shouldn't be people who are nursing our wounds and throwing our pain and bitterness out into the internet every day. We should see what God has, this great gift that God has given us of having to go through this and use it for the benefit of the greater Christian world.
Is there a role that catechesis plays in addressing some of the older wounds? And if so, what would that look like as we instruct people in our parishes?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so when we lost our building, and
Mm-hmm.
and the first thing we said coming out of that experience and into our new building was, we're not going to become the shepherd, the church of the old law student, the church of the good law student. We're gonna forget the law student. We're gonna pray. We made it part of our litany during Sunday services to pray for the Episcopal Church, pray for those who see us, pray for them. And so there was really, at least in my parish, there was a lot of genuine forgiveness toward those who took our building. And at the same time, I'm a big proponent of Christian education for adults, for weekly Bible studies for adults. At the same time, feeding my people on the Word of God, and we can see, okay, that what we went through is not something to feel personally hurt by, but it's something that we can rejoice in. God saw, God and allowed us to go through not suffering like other people in the world suffer, but a kind of suffering for the sake of the gospel. That's a real gift. That's a wonderful thing. How blessed we are for that. And so that kind of turns the pain and the bitterness into joy and a more evangelistic outlook. Let's go and continue to spread this gospel.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like some, as ACNA has wonderfully grown and is hopefully moving into spaces in North American life where the Episcopal Church has, in some cases, has vacated, that we're going to be hopefully attracting a larger and larger group of people, and then that increased share of the pie, if we're successful, will bring us people expanding in different backgrounds. Is there a sort of an idea of how we can effectively manage having people of different backgrounds without seeing everything as a nail? I'm at IRD, obviously, so obviously our key thing is keeping tabs on the religious left, and there's a real danger I'm conscious of that as a hammer, I can see everything as a nail sticking up. So what do I do in order to keep a proper perspective amidst a growing and diversifying number of people as far as backgrounds coming into the Anglican Church in North America?
No, I mean, I hear you. I mean, I feel the same way. Sometimes I do, in my worst moments, just see a whole bunch of nails that need to be hammered. I do think, though, pastoral ministry helps because, in the context of not my online ministry, but in my actual real life ministry, I have parishioners who, come from, I would say, backgrounds that are very much different than mine, and some of them they're registered Democrats of all things. So you, as a pastor, you kind of say, okay, well, what's essential here? Are you a heretic because you voted for Barack Obama? No, you've got to boil things down. What is essential? What's non-essential? I think, and once you get that, once that becomes clear, what's essential is upholding what the scriptures reveal. And what the scriptures don't reveal, what they don't command or forbid, there's freedom. And so I think we need to be able to really focus in on that and not build our own laws on top of the biblical law, our own norms on top of the biblical law as if they're the same. That's what the Pharisees did. They had a whole system of regulations they piled atop the law, and they used it in accordance with their own prejudices often. And so we want to be careful to keep the law as that which God has revealed and not that which we prefer. So
yeah, that's well said. Thank you. Well, this is I'm going to wrap this up since we're trying to keep this to a short amount that's easy to share on the internet. But thanks so much, Matt. I really appreciate your time here and navigating these issues with me and the other folks here at the IRD. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.